In early April, I settled into a modest one-bedroom apartment on Mifflin Street, nestled in the heart of a quaint downtown district. The building, a three-story relic of red brick, exuded an old-world charm with its creaking hardwood floors that groaned underfoot, hissing radiators that seemed to whisper secrets, and chipped crown molding that gave the place a sepia-toned nostalgia. At 27, I was a freelance video editor, piecing together a living through wedding montages, low-budget commercials, and the occasional indie film project. My days blurred into nights, hunched over my laptop with headphones clamped on, a bowl of cold ramen at my side, and a half-drunk Red Bull leaving a damp ring on my desk. The apartment's quirks, its heavy silence, the occasional squeak of pipes, felt like part of its character. For the first few weeks, it was just me and my work, undisturbed by the world outside. My neighbors were ghosts in their own right. The guy across the hall offered a curt nod when we crossed paths in the narrow stairwell, but otherwise, the building was a fortress of solitude. Its thick walls swallowed sound, and the stillness was almost tangible, broken only by the groan of the heat kicking on. But then, in the dead of night, the noises began. It was around 2 o'clock or 3 a.m., that witching hour when the world feels too quiet. Faint footsteps echoed from the apartment above mine, soft and deliberate, like someone pacing barefoot across the hardwood. Sometimes, a dragging sound followed, a slow, scraping noise, as if a heavy object was being pulled across the floor. At first, I dismissed it. Old buildings creak and sigh. Sound travels strangely through thick walls. Maybe a tenant was staying temporarily, or a contractor was working late on renovations for the vacant unit above. One night, I was deep into editing a wedding reel, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the room, when the sound hit me like a jolt. A chair, unmistakably wooden, scraped across the floor above, the noise so clear it felt like it was happening in my own apartment. I froze, pulling off my headphones, the silence that followed heavier than the sound itself. No footsteps, no voices, just the oppressive quiet. I paced my room, heart thudding, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the floorboards were settling. Maybe it was just the building's bones groaning. I grabbed a broom and tapped the handle against the ceiling, half expecting a neighbor to tap back. Nothing, just silence. The next morning, I cornered Sharon, the landlord, as she fiddled with her tablet outside her ground floor shop. "Is anyone living in 3B?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. She barely glanced up. "Nope. Been empty since December. We're gutting it next month." Her tone was final, but I pressed. "You sure? I heard something up there last night." She raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of amusement and irritation. "You think I don't know who's in my own building?" I backed off, but the unease lingered like a bad taste. That night, I set my phone to record audio while I slept, determined to catch proof. Over coffee the next morning, I scrolled through the recording and froze at the 3:04 a.m. mark. 3 sharp, evenly spaced knocks cut through the static. I played it back, again and again, each knock like a hammer on my nerves. That's when I called the police. Not 911, just the non-emergency line. I wasn't panicked, just unsettled. I explained the noises, played the recording over the phone. 2 officers arrived that afternoon, young and polite, but clearly skeptical. One of them cracked a joke about ghosts haunting old buildings. I didn't laugh. Sharon met us upstairs, her keys jangling as she unlocked 3B. The door creaked open to reveal a barren space, bare hardwood, a scattering of dust, a pile of drop cloths in the corner, and a rusted paint can against the wall. No furniture, no footprints, No signs of life. The officers checked every inch: closets, vents, windows. Everything was locked tight, undisturbed. Could be the building settling, one officer said, his tone practiced. Pipes don't knock like that, I muttered. He shrugged, as if he'd heard it all before. I should have packed my bags right then, but I stayed. I had deadlines. Piling up and moving wasn't in the budget. Besides, I wasn't about to let a few creaks drive me out. For a few nights, the apartment was quiet again. No footsteps, no scraping, no knocks. I started to think I'd overreacted, even laughed at myself for getting spooked. Then came the night that broke me. It was pushing 3 a.m., and I was editing with a cooking show droning on my second monitor for background noise. A tapping started, soft, rhythmic, one tap every few seconds, steady as a metronome. It came from directly above my bed, too precise to be random, like someone was trying to send a message without raising their voice. I muted the show and listened, my pulse quickening. Tap, pause, tap, pause. I flicked on every light in the apartment, grabbed a baseball bat, and sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes locked on the ceiling. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I packed a duffel bag and crashed on my friend Nate's couch. A few days later, I broke the lease. Sharon didn't fight me on it, though her usual bravado seemed shaken. I left the key on her counter and never looked back. I thought that was the end, but a month later, a DM slid into my inbox from a stranger. No greeting, no context, just, "Did you ever hear someone walking around upstairs?" My stomach dropped. I didn't reply, but I knew. Someone else had moved into that apartment, and the noises had found them too. I still have that audio file, backed up on 2 drives. 3 knocks, clear as day. I haven't listened to it since. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone up to 3B myself, opened that door, and faced whatever was waiting. Story 2. The woman in the gown IV lived alone since my divorce 4 years ago. Just me and my dog Jasper in a modest 2-bedroom ranch in Little Rock. The neighborhood is the kind you'd see in a feel-good movie, neatly trimmed hedges, neighbors waving from driveways, kids riding bikes until the streetlights flicker on. After long days in HR, untangling office dramas, and soothing egos, coming home to that quiet was a balm. My routine was predictable. Coffee at 7 a.m., emails by 7:30, Jasper's walk at 6 p.m. sharp. He was my shadow, a loyal retriever. Mix who stuck close, especially after dark, curling up by the door with his ears twitching at every distant sound. But in July, Jasper changed. Every night at 2:30 a.m., he'd wake me with a low, guttural growl. Not his usual bark at a stray cat or rustling leaves, but something deeper, more primal. He'd stand rigid by the back door, staring into the yard, his body taut, as if braced for something to emerge from the shadows. I chalked it up to wildlife at first, a raccoon, maybe a possum. I'd flip on the porch light, but the yard was always empty, the grass shimmering with dew under the moonlight. After 4 nights of this, I ordered a Ring camera and installed it above the back door, figuring I'd catch whatever was spooking him. The first 3 nights showed nothing but moths dancing in the camera's glow and fireflies blinking like fading stars. Then, on the 4th night, I forgot to check the footage until lunch, distracted by a hectic morning of meetings. When I opened the app and scrolled to 2:33 a.m., my heart stopped. There she was, crouched on the back steps, her pale skin almost glowing. Under the camera's light, her hair hung wet and stringy, clinging to her face, and she wore a thin hospital gown that fluttered in the breeze. Her bare feet pressed flat against the concrete, and she was perfectly still, staring downward, not at the camera, but at something unseen. I rewound the clip, watched it again, my sandwich forgotten on the desk. I called the police that afternoon. 2 officers arrived, watched the footage, and exchanged glances. One asked if I'd had friends over who might have pulled a prank. I shook my head. They didn't recognize the woman, said she didn't match any missing persons reports or escapees from local hospitals. When I asked them to check nearby facilities, they nodded politely but offered little hope. Could be a transient, one said. Keep us posted if she comes back. That night, I locked every door, drew every curtain, and kept Jasper in my bedroom, the TV murmuring to drown out the silence. She didn't return the next night, or the one after, but her image burned into my mind. The way she crouched, not hiding, but waiting. I posted a still from the footage on local Facebook groups and a neighborhood subreddit, hoping someone might recognize her. The responses were useless. Memes, ghost jokes, someone claiming it looked AI generated. Then Jasper vanished. It was a Tuesday morning. I let him out as usual, sipping coffee and scrolling through emails. He sniffed around the yard, wandered toward the gate. I glanced at my phone for maybe 30 seconds. When I looked up, he was gone. The gate was latched, no holes in the fence, no torn grass. I called his name, searched the yard, the block, my voice raw by noon. Nothing. I checked. The ring footage. The app showed a blank gap at the time he disappeared, like the system had erased it. 2 nights later, my neighbor Diane texted me a clip from her own Ring camera. 2:31 a.m. The same woman, same gown, same wet hair, walking slowly down Diane's driveway, cradling something small wrapped in cloth. The way she held it, gentle, protective, made my skin crawl. It was too small to be a child, but the tenderness in her movements haunted me. I forwarded the clip to the police. Their response: "We'll add it to the file." No follow-up. No answers. That it's been nearly a year. Jasper's gone. The woman hasn't returned. But I still check the camera feed obsessively, refreshing it like a nervous tick. Sometimes, I feel like she's still out there, crouched in someone else's yard, waiting for the next light to flicker on.